of June. Welcome to those on live stream. We have one apology from Councillor Ludlow, and just note the Mayor is here, but he's just outside dealing with an issue, so, well, he's on the phone. So can I have someone move? Thanks, Barry, and seconded Leslie. Apologies, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Any declaration of interest related to the agenda today? No. There's no public forum, so we will move on to the minutes of the Finance and Projects meeting for the 21st of May. Can I have someone move that we accept those minutes? Thanks, Leslie. Seconded, Tom. Any discussion around those minutes? I just had one on page 2 of 6 with respect to, I think it was Jamie said about bringing back the consultants, the query was raised around the pay, the expenses for consultants. So you were going to bring us an update on that, I think, at some stage. Is that right?
I'll answer that one. I think that will come through probably in the next month's meeting.
Okay, right, thank you. Okay, we've got a mover and a second. Any final discussions? Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. So, first item on the agenda, or second item on the agenda, is the LGNZ Annual General Meeting remit, re-rates, rebates. So, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. This is a remit being proposed by Dunedin City Council relating to the rates rebate process that is currently administered by us but funded by the Department of Internal Affairs. They're asking for Council to consider supporting this remit so that it can go forward to the LGNZ conference later this year. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? No, I've got one. Can you just explain, so what, it's a rebate in relation to what?
So people, certain categories of people, both elderly and those on low incomes, are entitled to a rebate on their rates.
Right.
They have to apply each year and prove that they meet that income criteria.
Yeah.
Patricia's team and the customer services team administer that on behalf of Council, and then the money is refunded via the Department of Internal Affairs directly to the ratepayer.
Right, okay. No, thank you. Evelyn?
Just in terms of superannuitants, has there been any discussion about sort of like a 3-year term or something like that, and only just answering my circumstances have not changed, rather than putting people through the going over and bringing all the information and all that sort of thing in every year? I recognise that for other groups of people that may be necessary because their circumstances may be much more volatile, but for superannuitants, it's, unless they actually win lotto or something, if they're living on superannuation now, they're likely to be in 2 years' time.
Yeah, so it's not a question related to the paper, but I'm happy to accept it.
Well, I
it's a good
think
question.
no, I think it's an issue about the amount of staff time.
Yeah, it is about the process, yeah. I'm happy to take it.
I'm going to pass that one to Patricia. She has a much more detailed understanding than me.
Through you, Mr. Chair. How we practically administer it is if someone says they receive, say, their single person pension, they just have to say that. They don't need to prove that. It's up to the DIA to make the proof. It has been lessened, and I think about 4 years ago, where it used to require like a statutory declaration just about that. That requirement's disappeared from it. So it's just someone needs to bring in, say they're on the pension, they bring in their interest, and that's all that is needed to do that application.
Yeah, so probably a question related to it. How often is that process of application reviewed? Is it annually reviewed?
We just get told by the DIA if it was to change. It is a DIA process.
Right.
They will tell us that application forms are available when we request them. And they still paper application forms as well, that has not gone online.
Right.
So it is still manual paper application forms coming in, needing to be processed. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So in terms of what Dunedin are suggesting, is that going to add to the workload, not change the workload, or you're not quite sure at this point?
My understanding what Dunedin's suggesting is that they're increasing the maximum amount of the rebate. Because at the moment for this year, I think it's $750 or $760 is the maximum amount, and depending on the level of rates that you pay and the level of your income determines how much rebate, if any, you may get. There are people who are superannuitants who do not get any rebate because of the level of their income or the level of their rates.
Okay. Leslie? And
Thanks,
then,
Mr Chair. I was just going to say the rates rebate scheme has been around for a very long time. It's cost neutral to us, but its one problem has always been that there hasn't been an inflation adjustment yearly. So at various times, governments have looked at it and increased the rates rebate amount. But there's been years before that when there wasn't an inflation adjustment, so it's fallen behind. So I think Dunedin's remit is actually a really good remit to support, because if we can persuade government to lock in a yearly inflation adjustment, it will be to the benefit of all superannuitants and low income people who qualify for rates rebates, and we won't have what's happened in past years where the rates rebate got stuck in a non-inflation adjusted environment and people stopped qualifying for it.
Yeah.
So I just think it's a really sensible remit to support, and could have happened some years ago.
Yeah, thank you. Alan, then Peter.
I was going to say something similar to Leslie. Actually, I was going to say this looks like they're just trying to perhaps tie it a bit more to inflation, but it should be tied to inflation anyway, because if it hasn't been done for several years, well, to be fair, it's long overdue. So I support the remit as it is, but I think we should perhaps even look at a later date and perhaps take it even further. So so it's written in that it is inflation adjusted.
Yeah, is it?
Annually.
Yeah, just on that, could we make a recommendation to Dunedin to say we support, and could they add in the inflation?
They're already recommending
Well,
that.
they're
Mr.
saying,
Chair.
they're saying
The
local
agency.
government cost index
Yeah,
as the inflation
Yeah,
tool,
so-
so the remit's already
It covers it.
encompasses
Yeah,
it,
true. Yeah. Thanks, Alan. Peter?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. I'm not going to talk about the rebate, but the remit, but the rebate system is great for the people that find it very hard for ends to meet. But there are people in our community, and probably other communities too, are very cunning and rip the system off. Like they put everything into a family trust and have very little income and claim rebates. So I don't know how that could be overcome, but maybe that can be mentioned at the conference.
Well, I suppose that's one reason why it's reviewed annually, isn't it, to try and weed out those things. So, yeah, there's always going to be those unfortunate circumstances.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think I've got a mover and seconder in terms of Leslie and Alan. Is that fair to? Yeah, better second. Okay. So they're just, we agree to support will be the recommendation. Okay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Next item is the update. Jamie and
Just Jamie.
just Jamie. Welcome.
Right, I'll take the report as read. Not a heck of a lot to talk about this time around for net debt. We haven't really had too much movement over the last 2 months. We have had a bit of movement in May though, with repayment from Invercargill Central Limited of 12 million off their advance, but we've also given an advance to the holdings company for 18 million on a short term, which we're expecting probably end of July for that to come back. subject to timing. Otherwise, I'll just, take it as read. Any questions?
Tom?
I was just trying to find where it is in here actually, but I can't. But anyway, the cash and cash investments, which we obviously use to give a net debt position, and I think we have thought about the cash and cash investments as being there to cover a extraordinary event if something happened, and thinking about government's change from one in 10 years to 1 in 20 years and the possible need to use that. My question is about how liquid that is. Because when you need it for an event like that, you would need it immediately. But I do notice that some of the that cash and cash investments are in a form which is not liquid. They'd be lucky if half of it's liquid.
Yeah. So I think the number's about 18 million is actually cash, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or cash equivalent.
Yeah. So majority of our cash is very liquid. The only bits that really aren't is the term deposits, and that's actually subject to the banks actually releasing it. So the banks actually have the right to say no if we want it out early. I don't think I've ever heard of a bank that has done that yet, but they have that ability to do that. The only other bits would be the bits that are under the other investments, so the share investments and the advances as well. There'd be a wee bit of work to get that back straight away.
But isn't that the majority of it? I'm trying to find the page and I cannot, but I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's page 18 of 54 in board books.
Yeah. So of the 55 of cash and cash investments, probably
31.
for the cash and cash equivalents amount is the one that is liquid.
Okay. I guess.
I would consider the term deposits,
Yeah. Yeah.
I would consider the term deposits to be considered liquid if in the event of something significant, we would be able to talk with those banks who we all have, we have relationships with those banks, that's why we use them, that we would need that money. You just lose the interest rate, so you can break a term deposit early, you just don't get 6% anymore. But you can get to the funds. The only thing that's probably not as liquid is that loan to Invercargill Central.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the one I was thinking of.
Which
It's
is now
31 million.
which is now a much lower amount.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've got 19 on term deposit and then 4 on cash. Yeah.
I guess the point I was making, Mr.
Yes,
Chair, was that
liquidity.
when we think about us having a very comfortable position with respect to, cash in hand, a fair bit of that is not accessible, I don't think, and certainly not quickly. And I just wonder if we take that into account when we're thinking about, that sort of planning for future events. I don't really expect a response, Patricia. I guess I was mentioning it because it just seemed to me to be a very significant part of the.
But I think at the moment, I think as today, there's something like 14 million
Yep.
sitting in that cash and cash equivalents as of today.
Yep.
So it does move, it just happened to be at that month end we were low, as we typically become low in cash at this time of the year. We get through, we've had a rates instalment, we are now high in cash again.
Yeah. So maybe a thing for us to think about, I had actually marked too, Tom, was, and it could probably come through audit and risk, is just, what is our liquidity rule we hold? Do we have, but as a percentage of our, so we have as a number as opposed to a percentage of our
It's a number.
free cash flow over 3 months or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so recommendations is receiving the financial update, note the current debt and treasury position, and note the review of sensitive expenditure that was listed. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thanks, Leslie. Tom? Okay, any final discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Jamie. Next is, who's presenting this paper? You, Patricia?
Yeah, it'll be me.
Yeah, okay. So financial risk management policy update.
So this is in response to, I'll take the paper as read, we adopted last year a new financial risk management policy. We, as a result, as it came through audit, and the Remuneration Authority looked at it, we discovered that we were missing anything in this policy in relation to elected members' remuneration. So we've updated the policy to make it specific, to include the section on elected members' allowances. That was missing, it wasn't anywhere else, so we want to add that in as a, just for a completeness point of view, so that we had it written somewhere. It's not recommended that consultation's required for this. This was a administrative oversight, that this was needed.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on the paper? I've got a,
Happy to move it, Mr Chair.
yeah, I've got a couple of three. So my first one was just around, where is it? The contribution to social club activities. Is that a capped amount?
Can't recall, I'm just looking at Jamie at the back there, I think. I'd have to go back and, which page number was it?
It's page 10 of 25 of the report, or page 33, 34, 1.8.2. It's just contribution to social club. And the other thing would probably be, it'd be good to...
It says that council can
Yeah, I
make
know, but how much do we contribute? And it'd be interesting to see how much staff pick it up.
0.
We contribute 0.
I'll jump up, Jamie.
So we don't currently.
So the council itself does not contribute anything to the social club.
Right.
It's deducted from members' wages if they want
Yes,
to become members.
yeah,
of
they
the
make
social
their
club.
own contribution,
Yes.
but we don't contribute.
Not from council, no.
Right, okay. Okay, thank you. And then just probably going to come to either Evelyn or Pania on this one, 2.4, just that the COHA policy. Are you happy that that reflects sort of what should happen and it aligns with?
So we had input into this originally, and as far as I can see, there has been no changes made to it. So, in practical terms, I don't see an issue. The only thing I would say is that where there's dollar amounts in here that from time to time that may need to be reviewed, because obviously the costs in our world are no more static than they are anywhere else. But the examples that are given are just examples, and it's worked okay for us, I think, so far.
Okay. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. No changes have been made, and this is a guideline.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, cool. And just the other one I had was on 5.7, which is page 46, 45, 46, was around the consequences of an investigation. Might be semantics, but there's a reference in the first paragraph where we may contact the police, and then later on in the second last paragraph it will be referred to the police. And the thought I had there is, at what point, are we clear at what point we're going to link the police into any investigation? Does it leave it a bit of ambiguous around we may and then we will? So just wondered. But normally you would have a sort of a stepped process through it where you investigation and it triggers either level or that you are immediately, or you do go to police at that stage.
Through you, Mr Chair, if I look at it, depending on what the suspicion is at the start of the investigation, it may go to the police, but depending if at the end of the investigation we have ascertained that there is an instance of fraud, it will go to the police, is how I read that, and I believe that's how it was drafted when we looked at it last year.
So would we involve the police in all suspicions of fraud?
No.
Mr Chair, I think the key point in the suspicion is the reasonable grounds. If it's a suspicion that we are going to investigate for reasonable grounds, we probably wouldn't contact the police until we had found the reasonable grounds. Then we may contact them, but when we had a level of proof of an illegal activity,
Mm.
it becomes a will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's probably a justice thing. Again, Leslie, you're probably best placed to comment on this, but, you know, as the, you know, does that policy reflect, you know, justice where, you know, innocence until proven guilty type thing?
My own personal opinion is that it reflects a fairly prudent approach that gives council the option of maybe contacting the police where there's reasonable grounds for the suspicion, so that the police and council could
Yeah.
work together at that early stage. But when you've got the definite instance of illegal activity, then it's not a choice matter. You will go to the police at that stage. And I think it's a prudent approach.
Mm.
The suspicion on reasonable grounds may be enough in the Chief Executive's judgment for early contact with the police to help coordinate the investigation. By the time you've got the actual illegal activity proof,
Yeah.
it's not a may or may not, it's a will.
Yeah. Do we have a process that sits beside the policy so that someone would know what steps to work through? We do?
Through yourself, Chair, absolutely we do. We have an internal process through our P&C team to conduct investigations in relation to suspicion or allegations.
Yeah.
And to your question about innocent till proven guilty, you always conduct an interview with that mindset in relation to the initial investigations, and you'll note in the policy the police will be included where it is deemed to be an illegal act. Where we've got the maybe is where we've got suspicion of a significant fraud.
Yeah.
So we haven't defined the level in here, but it does go through in our employee code of conduct.
Right.
And
Something
we've
like
got,
Yeah.
goes through that process.
Yeah, okay, cool. Right, no, thank you for that. Okay, so any other discussion? No? Can I have a Leslie moved, thanks, seconder. Thanks, Helen. Any final discussion? No? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, next strategic capital projects report. Erin's going to present this with Lee's absence.
Thank you, Chair. Particularly in Lee's absence, I've also asked Stephen Gibbs to come up to the table with me just so that I could introduce him to you. Steve's been essentially employed as a 2IC to Lee in the PMO team and comes to us with a background from both Downers and corrections, primarily in the property project management type space. So he's been getting up to speed over the last 2 months, 3 months, and obviously supporting Lee and the broader team in that space. So if there's anything I'm a little bit light on, I may hand over to him when we get into questions. In terms of the report, the key things I'll just walk us through, I'll touch on some of the key points. One is the Branksholme water main project. As per the report, we've just had a little bit of tricky ground that the team have been encountering as we've got closer towards the CBD on that project. That's obviously putting a little bit of pressure both on the time as well as on the cost side of things for that project. Not too extreme at this stage, but we obviously wanted to just give an early highlight around the fact that we are working through that, and the team are now assessing what impact that may have moving forward with the project from a time and cost perspective. Rugby Park's obviously underway now with the 2024 package that was signed off by council, so the team have already cracked into that one. I guess one of the key highlights, and I'm not sure whether Rex has anything in particular he wants to say, was obviously the Tuatarium opening that happened now nearly 2 weeks ago, I think, which was an awesome event. Really, I think, I don't think I've ever seen quite so many people in Queen's Park at one time, so it was really, really excellent and a great outcome. And I think, as Grant said, 2 out of 3 projects down on that program, so we're now able to concentrate on that last final biggie with our focus on Te Anua moving forward. The museum, we've had a discussion about that one recently, but that project obviously continues with the developed design work now nearing completion and the concepts for the experience for the museum now being ready to be tabled with council. So we're still tracking to that timeline of 12/25 for the substantive building piece being completed in 2020, end of 2026 for the opening of the museum. The Bluff Boat Ramp project is getting very close to the final stages. I know a number of the team were down. I think Grant may have also been down seeing the pontoons ready to go into the water. Just a slight delay on those from a weather perspective. That's a project that also, obviously a smaller project, but did have some pressure around budget. That is still the case, however, that has come back, so we're now looking to be around 150k. We're sort of forecasting over budget on that one, but still looking at a pretty good result, given that was once a project that we were really struggling with how we might deliver within quite a constrained budget. Housing innovation for stage 1. This is the last time that you're going to see this one on the report. This one I think is quite a cracker of a project. The team have delivered an awesome outcome on time and well under budget. So this is the last time you'll see that stage 1 work, and then you'll see from the report that the team have already started cracking into the stage 2. So we'll start moving stage 2 through onto the reports going forward. So a great outcome on that one. And CCTV, sitting at the bottom there, we're still working through the tender process for CCTV. That is bringing us some cost pressure, and we're obviously looking to do a session with council just around next steps on CCTV moving forward. So Chair, happy to take any questions.
Peter?
Yeah, the problems we've struck in Russell Street with the water mains, I understood all the water mains from Branksholme came down Queen's Drive, attached to the Waihopo Bridge, above the surface. Have we changed?
No, so different piece. The main Branksholme line comes through on the other side. So you're right, there are mains down Queen's Drive, but not that piece of the main trunk line comes down through a different corridor.
So is that part of the main trunk line that is in Russell Street, or just a sort of a secondary line?
A secondary piece.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Nobby?
Just 2 issues, I guess, Aaron. One is that we seem to be getting further delays on CCTV. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we gave a pretty clear message to the project management team. We just want that done. And I know Lee has come back and spoken to myself and spoken to Grant as well about the option of just doing the original 9 cameras and then sort of asking the question, how many cameras do we want? We have downsized the number of cameras, and we've given a commitment that we will put them in by last Christmas, and then we've said we'll get them in by this Christmas, and it looks like we won't get there either. And so I guess from an elected member's perspective, it's difficult to be giving some of the retailers some commitments to do this, and then we just keep backing away. So I know the figure up front is 4 million now, but 1.6 of that is OPEX over the next 5 years. So if you factor that out, it's about 2.2, 2.3, which is what we discussed last time. And I just think the message through to Lee should be, depending on what others think, that we just get on and get it done. That's stage 1.
I'm conscious that we do have a separate paper on that item in public excluded. We have had to put that one into public excluded because we are still part way through the tender process for that one. So we just need to keep those commercials in PE.
Yeah.
But absolutely, we'll be able to work through that, and we'll take direction from council. The fact that we have had some delays, and I'll double check this with Lee, but certainly my understanding was that we were still on track to deliver stage 1 this year,
Okay.
if that is council's decision. Paul has confirmed that for me, thank you.
Yeah. And the other issue was the CAB,
Yeah.
our current building. We've done a fit out on the first floor, and it seems like we're doing fit outs on other floors and shuffling people around, and it just worries me a little bit of how much of that is remedial work,
It's not on there.
which we initially discussed, which is things like heating systems and leaking roofs, and how much of it is just fitting out accommodation as different sections move around the building, given that we've got a very short time frame about whether we potentially move elsewhere. Now, that's not saying we'll move elsewhere quickly, but we will hopefully, certainly by the end of August, know what other councils are going to step up and be part of a shared facility. And I just, I guess, want some assurance that we're not just by stealth doing up our current building, I guess, when we could eventually be out of the building, even if it's 3 or 4 years from now.
I might start with that one, and then I may hand over to Michael to finish that piece. So the piece that's obviously in scope for the PMO, and then also into my team in infrastructure from a property perspective, is simply around that original condition assessment that was done, and then what we need to do in terms of what we've talked about, keeping the lights on in the building, and that $1 million a year that's been allocated to do that. And essentially that's trying for us to try to keep up with those compliance elements, anything that we see as being a health and safety risk, and anything that fails from essentially a run to fail type perspective is the approach that we're taking to the building at the moment from a maintenance and renewal perspective. There is a broader piece of work that Michael will talk to around how we fit enough staff into the building. What I would add to that, though, is although we have had to do some work there, and that obviously has resulted in some new paint on the walls, to exactly the point that you note, that doesn't fix the underlying issues that we still have with the building.
Sure.
Michael, did you want to take the broader accommodation piece?
Yeah, thank you. Through yourself, Chair. I can confirm that none of the work that we are doing at the moment would constitute to repair work in relation to the building from the issues that have been identified previously and reported through to council about the building. All the work, as was just pointed out before, is about we've hit capacity in relation to the numbers, and we're having to try and stretch the building to fit people in. We've worked out we've got space on certain floors, and level 1 was one of those floors that we identified we had the space on it. So we've managed to squeeze a lot more people onto that floor than were previously there, and we're just to finish that piece of work, we're trying to get a few more onto level 3 as well. It's probably a case that we've been successful in our recruitment strategy, and we're now at a stage that because of that we've now run out of space for our current staff load. So we're now trying to fit as many people as we can in that short-term period, while we'll still need to come back to council in relation to what's the next steps in relation to the accommodation.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ria?
Thank you, Mr Chair. I just wanted to seek clarification on page 52 of board works under CCTV. I'm looking over through the commentary, and it says that we can expect to spend up to 120 million on this project. Can you, I'm sure that's a typo, right?
I'm quite confident that will be a typo. I'm just trying to see where we've said that. On page 52, was it?
Yep, under commentary it says with circa 40 million spent, another 80 million committed to the team. Certainly getting through the program.
That's not on CCTV, that's the overall
Right.
program
Okay,
sitting
so
at
I
the
wanted to
bottom.
clarify.
Yeah.
Yep, no, that's great, thank you.
Barry? Barry?
Yeah, as far as the boat ramp goes down at Bluff, have we got a plan to get photo recognition of vehicle plates to start that process off? Because if we just finish them and then try to do it 6 months down the track, people are just going to laugh at you.
I know there have been some early conversations around what we do with the Bluff boat ramp once it's up and running, but I'd need to check in with Lee and come back and report on that. I'm not sure where those conversation pieces are at.
Right. So we haven't had any problems with the pontoons the way they are at the moment?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I just heard a wee rumour that it's all, but it might be just a rumour. No, that's fine.
There was an issue, so on the
West one, is it?
that side, which is the west
Yeah.
side, with, oh, this isn't going to be
Yeah,
very
there
scientific.
was just a piece where the concrete and the pontoon didn't quite overlap, and there's
and
just
had to
essentially a
fix it.
defect that we're addressing
Okay.
Yeah,
there,
that's
but
fine.
outside of that,
It's just
Yeah.
what I heard through the grapevine.
Yeah, they just had, it was something to do with the sort of,
It's been addressed, it has been addressed 2 days ago.
yeah, that's right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder, please, to receive the report and the update from the PMO office and note the current status of the projects? Tom, thank you, and Barry. Any final discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Erin and Steve. Okay, public excluded. So we are going to move into public excluded, and the reasons for that are primarily some commercial sensitivity around CCTV and some other decisions we're making around some property. So can I have a mover? Thanks, Barry. Seconder, Tom. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. We'll take a sort of a 5 minute if you want to grab it.